So, thinking about a career in renewable energy seems like everyone is these days. And for good reason.
It's a booming field.
Totally. But you've gone a step further. You sent us some really interesting stuff from RoleCatcher, all about geothermal power plant operators,
Yeah,
right? And it's not just about, like, okay, what do they do? It's about, can you see yourself doing this?
absolutely. This is about you. Is
Yeah.
this the right job, the right career path?
Exactly. And what's so cool is that RoleCatcher doesn't mess around. They jump right in, busting myths about this job from the get-go.
It's not just about flipping switches out in the desert somewhere.
Seriously, it's way more dynamic than people think. You need some serious technical skills, but you've also got to be a problem solver.
You're not just an operator. You're a bit of an engineer, too, in a way.
We're talking giant steam turbines, complex systems, troubleshooting on the fly.
Keeping a cool head under pressure is key.
Absolutely. Definitely not a job you do on autopilot.
Not at all. The guide really emphasizes the critical role these operators play in regulating the flow of electricity to the grid. They're the unsung heroes keeping the lights on. Constant vigilance, thinking on your feet. Any little slip-up could have huge consequences.
Now that's responsibility.
Big time.
So speaking of responsibility, let's talk pros and cons. One thing I love about RoleCatcher is they don't sugarcoat it.
I agree. They give you the good, the bad, and let you decide.
Exactly. So on the plus side, this career path has high demand written all over it.
Job security is a huge deal these days. People want to know their skills are going to be valuable for years to come, and this field delivers on that.
Absolutely. Plus, it's renewable energy.
You're not just working a job. You're contributing to a more sustainable future. For a lot of people, myself included, that's a major plus.
Totally. And the guide mentions potential for growth and a good salary, too, which never hurts.
It's not just about the paycheck, of course, but it's definitely a factor.
For sure. But let's flip the script. What are some of the less glamorous aspects?
Well, one thing to keep in mind is location, location, location. Geothermal resources aren't exactly sprinkled evenly across the globe.
So you might need to be open to relocating if you're serious about this career path. Could be an adventure, though.
That's one way to look at it. New places, new experiences.
Exactly. And speaking of impact, the guide also brings up the environmental side of things.
Even though geothermal is considered a much cleaner source of energy compared to fossil fuels, it's important to be aware of the potential environmental impact.
So it's about being informed and making conscious choices that align with your values. Love that. But RoleCatcher doesn't just stop at the big picture. They get into the nitty-gritty skills you'd need. And it's not just be good at mechanics, which, duh, right?
Right. Mechanical aptitude is a given, but it's just the tip of the iceberg.
Exactly. They dig deeper into the knowledge base. They mention physics, chemistry, even design and safety stuff.
That's what I found so fascinating, how these different disciplines all come together in this one role.
It's like this surprising blend of theory and hands-on work. So cool. Have you seen that play out in your experience?
Oh, absolutely. Many times.
Like how? Give us an example.
I've seen firsthand how a strong understanding of thermodynamics, the science of how heat energy works, is absolutely crucial for an operator to really maximize the efficiency of a system like a steam turbine.
So it's not just about turning it on and off. It's about understanding the how and the why behind it to really optimize things.
Precisely. And even a basic grasp of chemistry is essential because you're dealing with these mineral-rich fluids that are inherent to geothermal energy.
Mineral-rich fluids. What does that mean?
Good question. These fluids, they often contain dissolved minerals like silica or calcium carbonate. They're brought up from deep underground along with the steam.
Okay, so you're not just dealing with water here.
Right. And managing these fluids is super important because if they're not handled properly, they can cause corrosion in the equipment.
Wow. So it's like a real-life chemistry experiment, but with much higher stakes.
You could say that.
And speaking of different stages, the guide also breaks down a geothermal power plant operator's career into 3 levels, which I think is really helpful. Entry level, junior, senior.
Gives you a clear path to see where you could start and where you could go.
I like how they use these example profiles to show what someone at each level might actually be doing day to day.
It makes it so much more real than just reading a job description. You can picture yourself in those shoes. So imagine this. You're an entry-level operator, just starting out. You're probably assisting with routine maintenance tasks, like checking gauges, making sure everything's running smoothly.
Got it. So you're not in charge of anything too major yet.
Right. You're learning the ropes, getting familiar with the equipment. You might be helping with some minor repairs, too.
Okay, so starting with the hands-on stuff.
Exactly. But you're also learning how to monitor those complex systems we talked about, keeping an eye on pressure levels, temperatures, flow rates, all that good stuff.
Making sure everything's working the way it should.
Exactly. And then you move up to junior operator. That's when you start taking on more responsibility.
What kinds of things would you be doing at that level?
Well, the guide gives an example of troubleshooting minor system hiccups. Maybe something's not reading quite right.
Okay.
You might be calibrating equipment, making sure it's accurate, or even collecting and analyzing data.
Oh, interesting. So you need those analytical skills too.
Absolutely. You're starting to use those problem-solving muscles. And all that hands-on experience you got at the entry level,
Yeah.
that's really going to come in handy.
Makes sense. You've got the basics down. Now you're starting to see the bigger picture.
Exactly. And this is where all those different skills we talked about before, the physics, the chemistry, they all start to connect.
It all comes together.
Precisely. But then you reach the top, senior operator. They're like the conductors of this whole orchestra of machinery.
I love that analogy. So what's their day-to-day like? What sets them apart?
They're not just overseeing operations, they're leading teams, making those big decisions that impact how much energy the plant is producing. And when those really complex system failures happen,
The ones that make everyone nervous.
exactly, they're the ones who have to figure out what went wrong and how to fix it. They need that deep, deep understanding of how everything interacts.
So years of experience have prepared them for those moments.
You got it. And here's another thing that the guide stresses. Continuous learning. This isn't a field where you can just coast on what you learned in school.
Things are changing too fast for that, right?
Way too fast. Technology's always evolving, and with a demand for renewable energy growing every day,
Which is a good thing.
the best. But it means geothermal power plant operators need to stay ahead of the curve,
Always learning, always adapting. That sounds familiar.
right? It's something we know our listeners are all about, always seeking out knowledge, new challenges.
Exactly. And that's where RoleCatcher itself comes in. Remember those little hints they drop throughout the guide about what their platform can do?
It's like they're saying, we've given you all this amazing information, but we don't just leave you hanging.
We can help you actually use it.
Exactly. It's like they're not just giving you a map, they're giving you a guide too.
I like that. So what are some of the features they highlight that really stand out?
Well, they talk about how RoleCatcher can help you organize your job search, which can be a lifesaver, honestly.
Especially in a field like this where you might have to relocate, like we talked about.
For sure. But what I thought was really cool was their AI-powered CV analysis tool.
Oh, yeah. I read about that. How does it work again?
Basically, you upload your resume, and their AI looks at it through the lens of a geothermal power plant operator position.
So it tells you if your resume is actually going to get noticed by the right people.
Exactly. And it gives you personalized feedback like, hey, you might want to highlight this skill more, or you need to reword this section to emphasize that experience.
That's super helpful.
Right. Takes out all the guesswork. And then there's the interview practice feature, which is genius.
Oh, yeah. Tell us more about that.
So they have these simulated interview scenarios that you can run through.
Okay.
And the AI gives you feedback on your answers. Like, that was a great response. Or you might want to rephrase that to sound more confident.
It's like having a personal coach in your pocket.
Exactly. It helps you get comfortable talking about your skills and experience in a way that resonates with potential employers.
Those are some seriously valuable tools. But let's be clear, we're not trying to sell anyone on RoleCatcher.
No, no, no. Our goal here is to empower you.
To give you the information and resources you need to make the best decision for your own career path.
Exactly. Explore RoleCatcher, see if it's a good fit. But most importantly, take what you've learned today and run with it.
Love that. Now, before we wrap things up, I want to leave our listeners with something to ponder. So we talked about how geothermal resources are kind of limited to specific places, right?
Yeah, they're not everywhere.
Yeah. So say you're interested in power plant operation, but you want to keep your options open, geographically speaking.
Wider net, yeah.
Exactly. What other renewable sources would you be curious about? What would get you excited?
Ooh, that's a good question to think about. It's like we've explored this one amazing path, geothermal.
One delicious flavor.
Yes. But there's this whole buffet of renewable energy careers out there.
So many possibilities.
Each one with its own unique challenges and rewards, its own set of problems to solve.
It's pretty inspiring when you think about it.
Totally.
Like we've got solar, wind, hydro, even wave energy.
Oh, yeah, wave energy. That's a really cool one. Still in its early stages, but tons of potential.
Exactly. It seems like the technology is just advancing so rapidly. Who knows what the future holds?
It's an exciting time to be in this field, that's for sure.
Totally agree. So for our listeners out there, remember, this deep dive was all about geothermal.
One piece of the puzzle.
But it sparked, hopefully, some curiosity about the bigger picture.
Exactly. Because it's not just about maintaining the way things are, it's about pushing boundaries.
Finding those innovative solutions to power our world.
And maybe, just maybe, our listeners will be the ones leading the charge.
I wouldn't be surprised. One of you listening right now could be the next big innovator in renewable energy.
Totally. It's clear you're all driven, curious, and you want to make a difference. That's amazing.
It is. So keep asking questions, keep exploring, never stop learning.
Because who knows what incredible discoveries await.
That's what we're all about here. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive.
It's been a pleasure.